All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. My name is Allegra Elson, and I serve as Director of Training and Development with Vibrant Pittsburgh. I'm excited to have you here today to have an informal Q&A session around the 2022 Vibrant Index Summary Report. And I am joined by my colleagues, Lora McKnight, Chief Operating Officer, Derrick Shoffner, Senior Director of Programs and Services, and Irving Torres, our Membership Engagement Manager. And we do want this to be as conversational as possible. I've said if you'd like to drop some questions in the chat, please do. If you'd like to raise your hand and unmute, please do that. We will spend some time talking about the Vibrant Index and the key findings from the Vibrant Index 3.0. We'll talk about how scaling and upskilling your DEI efforts will benefit your organization in the region. And we'll also talk about how you can join the next Vibrant Index, keeping in mind that participation in the Vibrant Index is open to everyone in the region, and it is also free of charge. So as you start thinking, we're going to start talking. As you start thinking of those questions, I'll ask you to drop them in the chat or raise your hand to speak with our panelists. So I am going to stop sharing in just a moment. So to get us started, I'm going to ask Derrick and Irv and then Lora to briefly answer the question that we see here. What is the Vibrant Index? So Derrick, we will start with you.
Thanks, Allegra, and welcome everyone. Happy to be in this space. Happy with so many people in the e-room here with us to talk about things, Vibrant Index. So to get us started here, I think Irving and Lora and I are all going to give like very similar answers, but all throughout our perspective and respective lenses, which I think is going to lend itself to be very useful within this space that we're kind of operating in right now. So, through my 1 month of Vibrant Pittsburgh tenure, through my lens here, I view the Vibrant Index as being a workplace development assessment tool. Really allows your respective organization and the individual completing the respective diagnostic tool to really assess your internal and external practices as it intersects with diversity, equity, inclusion, and measuring that towards best practices that have been established in the industry of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So really allows you to benchmark where you are, but also with the support that we offer at Vibrant Pittsburgh to really create action steps and action plans to address that and kind of fill the void of the steps and the areas of improvement for you and your respective organizations. So that's really high level through my lens here. I'm happy, and I think I'm kind of like spoiler alert, at some point in time, I'm going to talk about sophisticating and upscaling your efforts, but through my lens, that's where we are right now. So I'll kick it over to Irving.
Absolutely. Thank you, Derrick. And good morning. Oh, good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, so happy to be here with you. How I see the Vibrant Index and how I talk to our members about the index and prospective members about the index is very similar to what Derrick had indicated. It is our DEI diagnostic tool. I usually start out by kind of saying how the Vibrant Index is a hallmark of Vibrant Pittsburgh. Essentially, if you do become a member, you'll see how embedded within all of our services and benefits, there is kind of connections to the 9 impact areas that the Vibrant Index assesses. So looking at your benefits and policies, your written commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, employee networks, education, leadership, community engagement, supplier diversity, accountability metrics. So you can see embedded in those and related to those, our services and benefits, will touch upon that and help you, gain more perspective in those areas. So essentially, if you're looking to kind of figure out where you need to begin in your DEI journey, or if you're doing this for quite some time and you want to continue to inform upon what you're doing on an annual basis, we highly recommend you engage in the Vibrant Index. As mentioned before, it is free, it is confidential, and for our members, it is optional, but it is highly encouraged. So just a little bit more context wanted to provide. And with that, I will pass things on to Lora.
Hi, everyone. So adding on to what Derrick and Irving articulated so well, I would describe the Vibrant Index in two additional ways. I would say that the index really provides for an organization a roadmap and a foundation for diversity, equity, and inclusion practices within an organization. Now, Vibrant Pittsburgh has been around for 12 years, almost 13 years, and we've worked with organizations at varying levels of their diversity, equity, and inclusion journeys. But over those years, we consistently hear from a variety of organizations at all sizes, all industries, all sectors. Yet we know we need to do better, but what do we do? And that's why we created the Vibrant Index, was to provide a roadmap for how to begin to think strategically about setting that foundation within the organization. So we know that organizational culture of belonging is not the same as creating benefits and policies and creating process. We hope that benefits and policies and process and the creation of that foundation impacts organizational culture. And what we do know is that when we do have those things in place, those processes, those procedures, those hallmarks of equity that you're setting up within your organization, they will outlive sentiment. So in the last few years, as we've been, there's really been a national discourse about equity, about inclusion, about belonging for all of the reasons that I know we all know, right? This has been on the national stage. It's been at the forefront. It's been at the forefront 20 years ago. It was at the forefront decades ago, right? These topics come up and there is an overwhelming amount of need to do something. And then they may fade back. And if we haven't done something, if we haven't set process in favor of equity, if we haven't set our benefits and policies to be as beneficial and welcoming for people of all backgrounds, then what we're doing is relying on sentiment. And Vibrant Pittsburgh would not encourage that. We would encourage that there's a foundation that's being built that will support a culture of inclusion and belonging, regardless of the sentiments that are happening at the time. We want you to embed this into your culture. And that's what the Vibrant Index provides, is a way to either begin that process or to keep that process going or to refine it, because the index does shift and change over time to highlight the best practices that we know are on the forefront of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Great, thanks to all three of you. And I just want to add, from my perspective as working in training and development, I look to the Vibrant Index. As I develop trainings, of course, I look to the members and their needs, but the Vibrant Index and the 9 categories or the 9 criteria really are also my North Star as I'm thinking about what we're developing and thinking about, so that we're all working together in concert, at Vibrant Pittsburgh. So that's also, one of the main ways that I use the index in my work with Vibrant Pittsburgh and with the members of Vibrant Pittsburgh. So as we were going forward, Lora or Derrick or even Irving, do you want to walk us through very basically what does it take to participate in the Vibrant Index? We know that it's opening again in January 2023. I will be giving links and information about how to do that, but could we just walk through the steps briefly before we get to, I have 2 very specific questions in the chat, but I want to get to just what are the basics of participating in the Vibrant Index going forward?
Derrick, do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
I was slowly moving to unmute myself. I'll let you go for it. Go for it.
So the process is very, very simple. We tried to make this as simple as possible and as open as possible. First, I want to say that this diagnostic process is highly confidential. I cannot stress that enough. We are not in, there's no desire from Vibrant Pittsburgh or from the region, honestly, which benefits from this type of concerted effort. There's no benefit to us revealing information about our participants. There really isn't, unless that information is something that we want to loud and we want to make sure is something that's being replicated and utilized by other organizations. We want this process to be as comfortable as possible for participants. So we keep all of the data that we get highly confidential. If you are a member of Vibrant Pittsburgh, one of your colleagues may even be interfacing with Irving for a member conversation and may ask, hey, did we participate in the Vibrant Index? And the answer is always, I don't know, because we want to make sure that we are not giving out information about participation in any way, unless we are very specifically allowed to do that. So that's the first thing. We only reveal information about our champions, and only if the champions decide that they want that information to be revealed. So even if an organization scores very highly, they may have some very valid reasons why they don't want to be noted as a vibrant champion in a public way, and we respect that as well. So after we really look at that confidentiality piece, and we're willing to sign non-disclosure agreements or do whatever needs to happen for an organization to feel comfortable to participate. The organization, once they indicate they'd like to participate, and we will have links to drop for how you can indicate that. You can either fill out our survey, or you can just reach out to Derrick or myself or any other member of the Vibrant Pittsburgh team and say, we're really interested in participating in January, and we'll get you set up. Once the organization does that, we get a FAQ document out to the organization. We really stress that if you have any questions during the process, that you reach out to us as many times as you need to, because the questions in our diagnostic are meant to serve all organizations at all sizes and all levels, and therefore some of those questions may not automatically make sense to a particular industry or a sector or an organizational size. So we really do recommend that when organizations are filling out the diagnostic, that they feel comfortable connecting with us and saying, hey, I'm looking at this question and I don't know how this applies to a nonprofit. What do you think I should do? How should I answer this? So the FAQ is there to give you some information, but then also our whole staff is available to help you along with the journey. In January, I believe it's January 17th, the day after MLK Day, we're going to be opening up the diagnostic period. And that runs from January 17th until the end of February. And the diagnostic is approximately 80 questions. Organizations get a link to fill that out online. Only one individual will be filling that information out so that we don't have confusion over versions that are showing up in our system. But we also have a PDF copy that goes out to the person filling out the diagnostic. And that PDF copy is there so that if you're in a large organization and you need to go to multiple departments to get different pieces of information, you can give that out and collaborate and pull all that information together. Once that happens, we get everything in at the end of February, then we begin our analysis process. And that is where we look at what organizations were capable of doing. And we really do look at the size of the organization and industries and sectors. So for instance, we know that generally speaking, smaller organizations have limited capacity in specific areas, like employee resource groups, for instance. If you don't have a lot of employees, it's difficult to create an employee resource group that would have the critical mass to do all of the functions that an ERG usually does. So small organizations are not in any way penalized for not having an ERG because it doesn't make sense for that level of organization. So we do all of that analysis. If we see that there's a particular size cohort of organization that is unable to do something, we're not going to be holding that against that size organization. Or if it doesn't make sense for a particular industry or sector, we're looking at that as well. We look at all the information, we average out scores, we have a proprietary process for doing this, and then we send out reports usually by the end of May to each participant. Again, these are highly confidential reports. They only go to that main point of contact that has been identified and designated by the organization. From there, we're beginning on our summary report. So we're pulling all that data together and looking at what does this mean for the region? Now, I always want to be very careful because it's easy to misinterpret what data can mean. This is really a snapshot every year of what's going on with our specific participants. So it's difficult to look back at the year before and say, oh, look, it looks like we've done better, because we have different participants every year. This year we had 104 that just went through the process. The prior year we had 78. They weren't the same group of participants even between 2 years. So what we're really looking to do is say, this is what we know is going on within this group of organizations at this time. And then as we move, year over year over year, and an organization participates in multiple years, then we can say something about what that particular organization is doing. So if you read the summary report, you'll see that we had 13 organizations that participated for all 3 years of the Vibrant Index process. And we are able to see some trends there because we know that they participated over time, and that particular group can see that timeline of progress. And then after you get your report, after the summary report is available, and we're able to say to the region, this is what we see, this is where we see some issues. At that point, you're able to have a 60-minute free consultation with a Vibrant Pittsburgh team member to look at your report, to talk over why your scores are the way that they are, to talk about the specific things that are happening within your organization, either be it process, culture, anything that you would like to talk about related to your scores. And we give you some very practical information about how to improve those scores. And then to support that and really scaffold that process, we have our learning opportunities for our member organizations. So the 60-minute opportunity to talk with us, you don't have to be a Vibrant Pittsburgh member to get that. But if you are a Vibrant Pittsburgh member, then you can explore learning with us through our Lunch and Learns, through the Resilience Through Equity series, and they touch on all different aspects of the Vibrant Index. So you have that wraparound learning opportunity as well.
Great. Thanks, Laura. So I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the report, to the summary report for this year, a link to the recording from last year's report, last week's report to the region. But we do have 2 questions in the chat that I would like to get to, and they are specific, but they are related, definitely related to the index. So I'll start with the first one. What is the best way to collect demographic information from staff? How about the board? What kind of demographic information should we be collecting? And what if people are reluctant to share this information or feel that we shouldn't be asking or collecting this information? So that's the first question. It's in the chat. They're about 3 or 4 separate questions. So I'll let you think about that for a moment.
I'll jump right in here. So the best way, I think, to gather that information is via like pulse surveys and internal climate reports and surveys in that kind of capacity. And I like to really lean into telling people, ask questions and what you can do something about. There has to be a sense of trust surrounding the questions and what you're asking. I wouldn't ask information from any group. I mean, whether it's my internal employee network or any person, period, unless I don't want to say an agenda, unless I can do something about with the data that I'm gathering. So I wouldn't just ask randomly a question just for no reason, so to speak, which is a dangerous proposition when you're creating surveys in that capacity. So gather in that type of capacity, and when you have that trust, and when you're like scaffolding and disseminating that survey with that trust of, we're asking you this for this tangible reason, to create action with whatever you share with us, whether that's creating ERG groups or providing support within this policy as you may need, or whatever your action step to follow will be. Let that data glean and lead that direction. So I feel like that's the overarching premise surrounding like how you're gathering this information. There always has to be that scaffolding and that understanding and transparency within those delivering the survey or gathering information, whatever that route may be, and those that are transparently sharing that information. So hopefully that lends some insight. Lora and Irving, you may be, and Allegra as well, maybe be able to share more insight as to, like, you know, what particularly you should be asking for, but that should be the overarching premise within that capacity.
Yeah.
Allegra, were you going to speak?
I was just going to say, I agree. And I agree that, yeah, letting the data lead, being transparent about why you're asking. You know, what I sometimes say about also asking survey questions in general is don't ask questions that you don't want the answer to. Don't ask questions that you're not going to do anything about it, or you're not showing how you're going to use the information that folks are generously using their time and thought to give to you.
And I would say transparency around the stage you are in your journey is very important. So I know that as an organization is beginning, and I don't know that that's where this individual asking is coming from, but as an organization is beginning this journey, they need to get baseline data. They need to know, we don't want to make assumptions. I don't want to look at my board of directors and say, well, I think that this is, this is the group that they belong to. So the approach that I've always used is voluntary and very transparent. So we need to get baseline data because we know that board directors, if we have a diverse group, we know that they outperform groups that are more homogenous. We would love to have you fill out this board demographic survey. If you're a Vibrant Pittsburgh member, we have one we can share with you. Please let us know, how you identify. If there's anything you wish you don't want to share, please leave that off. As simple as that for gathering demographics. It can be as simple with a workforce survey as well. But even just being able to say, we don't know what we don't know. And we want to begin getting accurate data so that we can move forward is a great place to start.
And I was just going to piggyback off of what Lora said and kind of answer a little bit more with the question pertaining to reluctancy from folks wanting to share that information. And so it's going to go back towards transparency. So indicating directly to your employees why you're collecting this information. And also that confidentiality piece, again, assuring them how this data that you're going to be collecting will be confidential and remain confidential, while they're here. And so that is, again, going back to being transparent, indicating why you're collecting the information, why it's needed, going back to where you're at within your DEI journey. As much as you can articulate that to your employees, I think that the more comfortable they will feel with filling out that information, as they know it will align with the missions that you have as an organization, but then a mission that they can also align with as well. So.
Great. Thank you. So there is, sorry, I'm also in the chat. Well, there is a second question. What are your recommendations for targeted recruitment strategy to increase hires from underrepresented groups?
I'm going to jump in here. This is an area where it really requires a lot of intentionality and specificity around what your specific organization is looking to do. I will use Vibrant Pittsburgh as an example for transparency and vulnerability. If you had interacted with Vibrant Pittsburgh just a few years ago, you would have noticed that there were no male identifying individuals on our staff. That's not typical for every organization, but that was the situation at Vibrant Pittsburgh. And so we had to look at our specific situation and say, we have a lot of racial and ethnic diversity within our team, but we don't see a lot of gender diversity here. And then think specifically about how to reach out and make those targeted efforts based on what was true for us. So I think that an organization needs to think about, what level are you looking at? Are you looking at the executive level? Are you looking at individual contributors? Are you noticing that your middle management is very homogenous and that perhaps there is a bottleneck there in terms of seeing the flow of equity within your organization? So starting there and then looking and saying, what diversity would we like to see? What diversity of perspective would we like to see? And then thinking from there, what metrics do we want to set? What's the goal that we want to set that's both realistic and attainable? And then from that point, I would say I would begin to look at how to begin to reach out. So if I was looking to hire more Black or African-American individuals, and I was looking specifically to hire them in management positions, I might begin to look at historically Black colleges and universities. Do I have relationships with those organizations? Do they know about my organization? How can I begin a conversation about my goals around increasing diversity in this particular space, in this particular way, and what makes sense for my organization there? Some organizations that are champions, they were very specific, and they were looking at, in the medical field, they're looking at nurses. They're like, we want to diversify our nursing population. What does that look like? So this is a conversation that, as an organization, if you are a member with Vibrant Pittsburgh, you can contact us and set up a time for an office hour, and we can discuss your specific situation and help you figure out what makes sense for your organization for that particular level, and for the diversity of perspective that you're looking to achieve.
I'm going to jump in here too. Laura's talked about strategy, really high level, talking about that. So I'll kind of take us to a more of a granular sense of engagement as it pertains to the respective communities that you want to. So I want to scaffold by saying, first, you need that strategy. You need all of the things that Lora mentioned, but you need to follow through with that, with authentically engaging respective communities that you want to recruit. So the guiding principle that I always have with people, and this is largely like a meeting type of principle, but it also applies to this: check on before checking in. So like, check on how people are doing before checking in on the project that you need executed. So build rapport with people before saying, hey, we need a middle manager, bring them on to X company. Like, check in and build some rapport with people and establish that best interest within this respective community before making it transactional. If I need one hire, you have this community member, give me that one hire, never talk to you again. You need that rapport and that trust. Again, I'm like a big trust person. I'll continue to say that on and on and on. You have to build that with communities. So then you have a pipeline, which is what you want. You don't want a transactional one hire for one engagement. You want a pipeline of continual engagement and continual recruitment within that respective community. That's the only way that you're going to build your respective organization with diverse talent. Less transactional, more relational. I'll pass it on to Irving if you have more to share with that.
Absolutely. Derrick, just kind of like reframing in terms of looking at, how do we cultivate workplace inclusion prior to, trying to bring on more diverse staff? Because we do, again, need to cultivate the sense of belonging before we continue to diversify, our folks, especially if we want to look at retention. And so I really love, the different things that you mentioned, Derrick. One thing that I was thinking about in terms of employee networks, again, going back to the Vibrant Index, and how oftentimes a lot of organizations aren't aware, how I think a lot of how employee networks are segmented based on identity. So you'll have your women's group, your BIPOC group, your group for individuals living with disabilities or individuals who are LGBTQ+. And a lot of times organizations aren't leveraging those opportunities to have those ERGs go out into the communities where they are a part of, to go out and do that outreach and be that connection point. So ERGs can definitely be utilized and leveraged in that area to really help to bring in more diverse candidates for your organization. So really think about that. If you do have an employee resource group, again, going back to the significance of employee resource groups is to really mitigate the silos that exist and amplify underrepresented voices. So you have that already within your staff. So leveraging your staff, to be that connection point as well. was another tidbit I wanted to add. So.
Yeah. And my follow-up question to all of you, which is a question I get sometimes, is, well, won't this take too long? Or this takes too long. I need somebody right away. What is your response to that?
I feel like I have to jump in here. Trust takes time. You know, relationships take time, and building that respective rapport with communities, and frankly, this is person to person. Personal relationships take time to establish. So, and frankly, if you're waiting to establish those relationships until need is there, it's too late. So you need to start earlier than that. This should be an ongoing, and everyone in the HR recruitment field knows recruitment is 365 every day. If you're not building relationships with people, prospecting talent, engaging with those respective talented people, it's too late. So this should be an ongoing movement with establishing that relationship and building that rapport with those respective communities.
Great, thanks. Other thoughts?
I will just say that as we are experiencing the Great Resignation, we all know that it takes a lot of time to rehire people too. It takes a lot of time to do any of these things, to build culture, to really realize what is going to make an organization not only more profitable, which we know is the case, but make it a place that's great to work, a place that people want to work, a place where people don't want to leave and they're not immediately looking for another position. All of these things take time. It's where you invest your time.
Great. Okay, so we have a question about the index, which I believe is easy. Are we allowed to share the findings of our report to our whole organization, so we can be transparent about where we are and where we are going?
Yes, please do. We would love it if every organization took their Vibrant Index findings and they had conversations internally and externally about where their organization is, if they had the vulnerability to talk about what needs to really happen within the organization, and using the Vibrant Index report as a jumping off point for building better equity and inclusion initiatives. Yes, please do. We will never share your data, but you can share your data in any way that you'd like.
That's why I said I thought it was a fairly easy answer. There's a question in the chat that just states, you know, how much time, and I'm not going to put the person on the spot, but I'm assuming, and please correct me if you would, how much time does it take to build relationships? How much time does it build trust around hiring? I think it, you know, as Derrick said, it takes what it takes. It takes to get started and make sure that you're doing it. But I don't want to try to interpret that question, but I don't know if you folks have thoughts, or our panelists have thoughts, excuse me.
As I unmute and pause here, I think generalizing a threshold for building a relationship devalues the intent behind building it. So it's intentional, and it's like building a relationship with Irving may take 1 hour if he and I are connecting, because we largely are in the same affinity group and demographic group, so to speak. It's going to be different if I'm connecting with anyone that I don't know, that I may not have any form of common ground with, or B, may not have an identity that we are in alignment with. So it's gonna take intentional effort, and I think saying it's gonna take 4 or 5 engagements is a generalization, but also a disservice to the intent behind hiring and engaging with talent. So that's my take on it. I don't know if anyone else has any further insight to share or comments.
I would just add, I'm not looking at the chat exactly, so I don't know who asked, but if your organization is a Vibrant Pittsburgh member, we have trainings around how to bring inclusive workplaces to fruition, how to increase empathy within an organization. And these are great places to start. If we build cultures of empathy within our organizations, it it's highly likely it will take less time. That isn't always the case. It depends on the individual. It depends on the team, on their manager, all of these things. But this is a further conversation that we could have if your organization is a Vibrant Pittsburgh member. So please do reach out to us.
Okay, and there was the individual did clarify, referring to an earlier comment, I was thinking about the amount of time to engage and onboard talent with an eye toward DE&I.
I will speak to this. So if this is one of the pieces that we recommend, is that CEO engagement is so important, and leadership engagement is very important, because when diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are starting from the top down, expectations are set, and they're set for the entire organization. At Vibrant Pittsburgh, given that we are a small team, we are less than 10 individuals, but we have a very specific culture, a very specific mission. We're driven to focus in on these aspects. When I'm hiring, I wait until I have a candidate pool that reflects the diversity that I'm looking to have within my organization. And that just depends on the position. It depends on the hiring climate at the time. Sometimes it takes a very long time. And depending on what we're hiring for, what level of position, depending on what we're looking to accomplish with that particular hire, sometimes it can take a very long time, and other times it doesn't. So it's very difficult to say, but we wait until we have that level of diversity in the pool. And we're committed to that. And we can do that because our CEO, Sabrina Saunders Mosby, is committed to that. And if I were to bring a candidate pool to her that was not diverse, she would say, go back to the drawing board. So this is really where CEO engagement and leader engagement and buy-in is so incredibly important, because what it does is it disrupts the sense of urgency around timelines and really puts the urgency around seeing the results that you're looking for equity.
So Derrick or Irving, if you have anything to add, if not, I don't have any more questions in the chat right now, but I am going to move to a question for Derrick, as he alluded to it when we started. So Derrick, how does scaling and upskilling your DEI efforts benefit organizations and the region?
Yeah, and this was a great segue. I was going to encourage us to pivot to that because I think this goes hand in hand with the climate and the practices that you had established internally, and Lora alluded to this as well, and with the equitable processes that you establish internally within your organization is going to be your North Star of guiding the actions that you take and the principles that you establish throughout your internal organization. So I think the importance of such is vital to not just your respective organization, but if we're very micro now, but if we take a step back and look collectively within the region of Western Pennsylvania, it's even more important for us to apply these practices and apply these models and best practices within the respective organizations so we can all collectively thrive. It's not just your respective organization being siloed within Western Pennsylvania. If more or less, if one person's doing an exceptional job, that should really encourage you to do that as well, so that we all collectively win. And I don't mean win in the terms of like wins and losses, but we just collectively make Western Pennsylvania a larger and more attractive destination for diverse talent, which we still have strides to do. So with that in mind, we can't do that if we're not applying diversity, equity, and inclusion principles within our organization. It's hard to find diversity when you're not applying inclusive practices within your respective organization. It's hard to seek that when you don't have inclusive models. You got to have a culture of inclusion within your respective space, and you have to utilize that through equitable principles. Like all of these things are one and the same, so to speak, in the way in which you're operating and functioning, but all collectively, that increases the vitality of your organization, first and foremost. It makes it more productive, as Laura has mentioned. It allows individuals to come to work and be seen and appreciated, but also collectively, it creates a pipeline of talent for our region. It makes it more attractive for individuals of whatever community they subscribe to see Pittsburgh as, hey, I should go to that place. We'll stop losing our talent to Atlanta, to Chicago, to Charlotte, to New York. People will start to see Pittsburgh as that destination for them to work and then be part of this respective community and to thrive in the spaces that we create. It's not just the silos of the workplace that we have these things, it trickles outside of that to the vitality of our respective region here. So hopefully that provides some insight. Lora, Irving, not sure if you all have Allegra more to share in terms of that.
I think it's interesting, of the four of us, three of us are transplants to the region. So it'll be interesting also, as a side note, to get your perspective on coming here and what keeps you here and what keeps you, keeps you in Pittsburgh, other than Vibrant Pittsburgh. So, but we'll stay with the original question of how does this help your organization, but also help the region.
Trying to think of how to say this in a way that I haven't said it a thousand times in the past. So when we look at the regional proposition and we look at what talent has in terms of choices for where they can be, I'm always thinking, okay, if I was just jumping out of college right now and I had the opportunity to remote work, and I could remote work probably anywhere, where would I want to live? Would I choose Pittsburgh? Or could I find a value proposition that that made better sense for me and for my family elsewhere? Especially for those that are coming right out of school. The talent of right now and tomorrow. They have every opportunity to go where they can see themselves reflected, where they can see themselves elevated, where they can see that their perspective is celebrated. And then I ask, is that true in Pittsburgh? And I don't see it being true in Pittsburgh, not for everyone. Our new mission, a rework of our mission, is that we want Pittsburgh to be an attractive place and to provide workplaces and cultures in those workplaces that are inclusive for people of all backgrounds. Why? Because if Pittsburgh provides this, then I won't see the best talent leaving for Atlanta or for Chicago, where I'm from, or for Charlotte. So this is a value proposition not only for organizations, this is for everyone in the region to care about. But Vibrant Pittsburgh specifically focuses in on organizations. I don't ever want to hear an organization say to me again that, we've brought people here and they're not happy here, so they want to go live somewhere else or go back to their home and work remotely. But I hear that, and that has to change, because then people are not investing in this region. And they're not bringing their full selves to this region. They don't feel that this region is home. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes a truly vibrant and vital region, is for people to really be invested here, and not just people that look one particular way or act one particular way or come from a particular background.
I was going to add, I guess, just a little anecdote. As Allegra had mentioned, a lot of us, were transplants. And so myself being a transplant from New York City and coming into Pittsburgh in 2014, I've definitely, kind of experienced, a variety of different workplaces, and just seeing, what their investment in diversity, equity, and inclusion had been. And depending on their investment of diversity, equity, inclusion, that definitely was relational with, my experience. So I identify as Afro-Latino, and I have a lot of other identities, just like everyone else here in this room, because we're comprised of many intersectional identities. And so, off the bat, when you walk into an organization, whether they genuinely mean what they say. And so for me, that is very important, because I mean, I lived my life, and I've been in many different circumstances where I felt not heard, or felt not valued, or seen lack of representation, and what that had done for me. So when I walk into an organization and, you know, they consider me to be a part of the team, but then implicitly there's so many different other messages that are occurring that tells me otherwise, you know, that, you know, definitely, you know, adds to, you know, my, you know, a sense of belonging, my sense of inclusion, especially, you know, if, you know, the outside environment, you know, the social political climate has not changed, you know. So when I go into work, you know, that social political climate that we're dealing with, all this unrest, that does not change for me. And so I want to be a part of an organization that lives and breathes, you know, this work, and no matter how long it takes, and seeing how far their investment goes is a direct correlation to, you know, my interest in wanting to work more with that organization and continue to build within that organization. I definitely wanted to speak on that, and why I think, you know, when you do invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion, no matter how long it takes, you know, your employees will see that, your employees will feel that, and that will, you know, overall lead to that big win, you know, that Derrick, you know, was referring to.
Great, thank you all. So that brings me back. That helps to bring me back to how does participation in the Vibrant Index help in these areas? How does, you know, consistent participation in the Vibrant Index help in these areas? And also just keeping in mind, you don't need to be a member of Vibrant Pittsburgh to participate in the index. We highly encourage you to become a member of Vibrant Pittsburgh, but also highly encourage you to use the index for your workplace. So I want to bring it back to the Vibrant Index and hear what you all have to say about how does this, what you've just spoke about, how does it link to the Vibrant Index? How does the Vibrant Index help that?
I'll jump in here. Initially, and I think directly, it allows you to benchmark and assess where you are for all the things that we just mentioned. And with all the support that's provided as a result, it's not ambiguous things that we're measuring. It's nailed down direct things that, in terms of like questions that are in the assessment and diagnostic of here's where you stand. Like, here are some action steps on addressing this. The diagnostic tool is so direct, yet so like powerful as a tool. If you may have taken like other assessments of like, okay, I take this and I don't know what and how to move from here. That is the direct and absolute opposite of the Vibrant Index. You complete the assessment, you complete the diagnostic tool. If you need to address community engagement, you know it at the end of this assessment. If you need to work on the policies and procedures that you have implemented within your respective organization, whether one is exclusive or it is not present because you don't have it, period, you get that feedback immediately at the end of this diagnostic tool. So I feel that I'm talking really greatly about the diagnostic tool because it's exceptional, but it tells you exactly, frankly, what you need to do. And then for all the reasons that mentioned, and Allegra's mentioned this as well, you know, this guides the programs and services on an annual basis, each iteration of what we provide to our members. It's no longer, okay, here's what you need to do, go do it yourself. While you are going to be the beacon of doing and executing that within the workspace that you particularly operate and function in, we're here to help and support you, whether that's providing educational resources, whether that's providing tangible programmatic opportunities for your staff or a representative to come and engage with respective people. We're here to support. So the index lends itself very nicely, if you have no roadmap, if you have no strategy, even if you do, to assess where your strategy is and then provide you some action steps to address and work on the things in which there are opportunities for improvement.
Great, thanks.
I just want to add too that, piggybacking off the question about can we share our data, I think sharing some of the pieces of data of the things that you're doing with your staff, especially if you're a large organization, the diagnostic can be a way to gather all of the things that are happening within your organization and to say, are you aware of this? I can't tell you how many employees I've spoken to at organizations where I'll say, did you know that your organization does blah, 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 blah? And they're like, I did not know that. So internal communication can actually be heavily impacted by the use of the Vibrant Index, because it can be a jumping off point for conversations with employees around these topics. Did you know that we have a space for religious prayer? Do you use it? Why or why not? Does it feel, we can get into, does it feel culturally off to go and use the space for some reason? So you can dig deeper and dig deeper in each of these areas and find out more from your employees. It's a great way to begin to do pulse surveys within an organization.
Great. Thanks. Well, with the time that we have left, I'd like to know what's next for the Vibrant Index. And I am going to drop into the chat ways to participate in the Vibrant Index, but we're soon we'll be talking about Vibrant Index 4.0. We had 104 participants. We had 11 champions this year. So what's next for the Vibrant Index?
I feel obligated to get in here for this one. Yeah, so I'll be stewarding Vibrant Index 4.0, which is exciting. So largely what's coming next, I mean, we're in the season right now of streamlining our processes. We want to ensure the vitality and the strength of the diagnostic tool, but we also want to make it even more accessible and approachable for those that are taking it. Lora mentioned the length of it, and it is comprehensive, but it's that way intentionally for you to get depth and breadth on all the concepts and best practices that we're mentioning. But what we want to do each iteration is to continue to make it easier and more approachable for organizations to participate in. So that's what I'm really tasked with right now. Creating processes and procedures for that to be welcoming and for it to be approachable for members and non-members to take it, frankly, from a standpoint. Further securing and further ensuring the security. I know that's a large concern for many organizations and companies that participate in it. We want, frankly, everyone, members and non-members, to be ensured that that is not an issue in terms of like your data being compromised. So really just an assurance on that front as well. And then from there, we're going to create and unveil and thoughtfully deliver an even better 4.0, a Vibrant Index coming soon. So as Lora mentioned, January being the diagnostic period for that. And then running through February as well. And then we'll start this process over again in terms of reports with data analysis, and then further supporting and not yielding and guiding the programs and services that we offer in 2023. So that's the kind of like timeline and process for coming up. Lora, I'm not sure if you have more to share and any insight regarding that.
What I would say that's coming up too is, we're in our third year. So in our fourth year, as our sample grows and as organizations participate year over year and continue to participate, we will be able to show trends within organizations that have consistently participated. You've answered a question about your benefits and policies every year. We can show that you've made that change. We can show that the region is moving forward in this way. So that's what's coming up for the Vibrant Index, is that as we stabilize this process and the instrument itself, as we have questions that are routinely answered by organizations, we can show, and we will have a public documentation that the organizations in our region care about these topics and they are moving in the right direction. So I would highly encourage you to participate. I would also highly encourage you to look at the link in the chat. If you did participate this last year, please sign up to review your organizational report. Mm-hmm. It's an important piece that we offer. And it's something that I think is invaluable in terms of taking these recommendations that are very concrete and really working them and tooling them for your organization.
Great, thanks. Irv, how about you?
I just have a quick message for our non-members on the meeting today, as well as our members. So as you know, I'm the member engagement manager, and so I definitely got to give a quick kind of spiel surrounding what we have to offer, because the Vibrant Index, it doesn't just stop here, and all of our services and benefits relate to the 9 impact areas that the Vibrant Index assesses. So for our non-members, our services and benefits relates to our councils. One of the most important and critical aspects of a membership is being connected to our Vibrant Pittsburgh community. That is essential. Being able to learn from other thought leaders, other people who've been doing this for 20+ years, or people who are just starting out, and learning from each other, creating that soundboard. One of the foundational things that we've established is creating a safe space where we can strip away this air of competition that can exist inherently between industry and sector, and creating a space where people can work in tandem to not only improve their efforts organizationally, but also regionally. So these councils do that. We have 4 councils that we can talk to you about later on if you're interested in hearing more about that. And then Allegra, Elson, the Director of Training and Development, does the monthly and bi-monthly educational opportunities. So if you want to foster and continue that dialogue, which is so critical to ensuring workplace inclusion and belonging, you got to come to our lunch and learns or be a part of those conversations. And then we have job promotion benefits to continue to foster promotion of your job opportunities. And within those 3 categories, you can engage there, but there are other ways for us to engage. If you need other resources and other counseling sessions, we can potentially provide that, or just connect you to other folks within our Vibrant Pittsburgh community. And for our members on the call, obviously, we have a plethora of initiatives that we offer. If you're looking to engage more, please don't hesitate to reach out. So.
Well, thank you, Irv. I think we should end it on that note, but I want I want to in that level of excitement and energy that you always bring to these discussions. And yes, absolutely, with our training and development opportunities, I'm always listening, I'm always watching, I'm always thinking about them. Our trainings are not static. I say this to our members all the time. I'm not going to hand you a list of trainings and say, that's it, this is all we have. I will work with you to do the best thing for your organization. So my suite of trainings, they are a guideline, the lunch and learns are a guideline, but I'm always developing them. So just to say that. We have about 2 minutes. If there's any questions from the audience, if there's any final words from Lora or Derrick or Irving, invite you to say those. And want to express my appreciation for the audience and for your attention, and also for your questions. And I've put in, lots of links in the chat. Please review those. And I've also put in our emails. So please feel free to email us. So I'll leave the last words to our panelists.
I just have gratitude that I want to share. So thank you for just being in this space and having these conversations, frankly, just listening and engaging with us. We're eternally grateful. So I'll pass it over to any with any other shares.
Thank you for asking authentic questions. That it takes a certain level of bravery to really put your real questions out there, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. And I hope that if you have additional questions, you reach out to us.
And lastly, I just wanted to say that we greatly appreciate the relationships that we have with you all, whether you're a member or a non-member or community partner. So thank you all for being here.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And thanks for attending. And, keep an eye out for everything that's happening. Keep an eye out on our website. Keep an eye out for your membership newsletter. Give Irv a call if you're interested in membership. And we will be seeing you soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, great rest of your week. So thanks so much.